This case begins on Tuesday the 7th of February, 2017. On this day, 20-year-old Shashia Moreau was living in Heist-op-den-Berg, a small city located in the Belgian province of Antwerp. Shashia was described by her family and friends as an introverted but sweet girl who was able to see the good in anybody. Since childhood, Shashia had been a dedicated fan of the Japanese franchise Pokémon. Pokémon exists as a TV show, a trading card game, video games and toys, and centres around various fictional creatures. The original Pokémon is a role-playing game based around building a small team of monsters to battle each other in a quest to become the best. In recent years, certain Pokémon collectibles, such as figurines and rare Pokémon cards, have gone for thousands of pounds on online selling platforms, such as eBay. Shashia herself had quite an extensive collection of Pokémon items. Mostly, she treasured the figurines. She would often attend conventions and dress up as her favourite characters, mixing with like-minded individuals who shared the same passion. Whilst at these conventions, Shashia would take the opportunity to trade figurines with others in an attempt to complete her collection, the ultimate goal for any Pokémon superfan. After high school, Shashia got a job at a local nursery, and with the money that she earned, she would spend it on more Pokémon collectibles. However, being that there are certain Pokémons that are more popular than others, it could often be found that some figurines were more rare and harder to find. Because of this, Shashia decided to turn to the internet in hopes of getting her hands on a specific Pokémon that she wanted. She stumbled across a Facebook group that was dedicated to Pokémon figurines and card trading. It was through this group that Shashia would encounter a 25-year-old man named Johnny van den Broek. The pair exchanged several messages through Facebook Messenger, and it was over the course of these messages that Shashia realised Johnny had the figurine that she desperately wanted. Shashia decided to meet up with Johnny to try and make a trade. The nursery where she worked was closed on Tuesdays, so Shashia had suggested that they have this meeting on Tuesday the 7th of February. That morning, Shashia was captured on security footage as she left her home just before 9 AM and headed towards the local train station. She was captured on CCTV again, boarding a train to Antwerp Central Station. Johnny had only lived minutes away from Antwerp Central Station, so once she arrived, Shashia had decided to walk on foot to his home. For the final time, she was captured on CCTV leaving the station. She would never be seen again after this point. Johnny, however, had been waiting that day at the station for Shashia to arrive, and fearing that he had been stood up by her, he sent her a Facebook message at 11:02 AM to ask where she was. Receiving no reply, he messaged her again at 11:14 AM, asking the same question, and this time stating that he was getting worried. Not long after this second message, Johnny received a reply from Shashia, stating that she had in fact changed her mind about the meeting and would not be showing up. Later that day, Shashia had been scheduled to meet up with a friend. This friend was waiting for Shashia at her local train station for her to return. After all, the trade with Johnny was expected to take no longer than 30 minutes. When hours passed by and Shashia had still not returned home, this friend sent her a worried Facebook message too. Shashia replied, however, at 2:38 PM, stating that she had decided not to go out with her that day. The family computer at Shashia's home was accessed later that day by her parents, and when they logged in, the worried messages from both Johnny and her friend appeared on the screen. After reading the troubling messages, her parents tried to call her mobile to check that she was okay. After all, it was unlike Shashia not to keep her family updated on her whereabouts, or let them know if she had changed her plans. All phone calls to Shashia's mobile, however, would go straight through to voicemail. When evening came around and Shashia had still not returned home, her concerned parents decided to contact the police and report their daughter missing. Using the Facebook messages, police were quickly able to track Johnny down. However, upon questioning, he told police that Shashia had failed to turn up to the train station as planned. Police began to track down Shashia's movements that day, also questioning those closest to her for clues as to where she may have gone. It would be just 2 days later when the Missing Persons Unit was assigned to the case, meaning that more resources could be used in the search, and Shashia's case was also made public. It was then that investigators began to try and use CCTV footage to track Shashia's last movements down. They had first traced her leaving her home, and then arriving at her local train station, before eventually arriving in Antwerp as planned. It was once she had arrived at Antwerp Central Station that things began to get interesting. In the footage, Shashia could be seen disembarking the carriage and then meeting up with an unknown man. The pair then began to leave the station and head in the direction of Johnny's home. With this new footage coming to light, police were able to quickly obtain a search warrant and use this to enter Johnny's house. They also apprehended Johnny and took him in for questioning. It was during questioning that he made a number of contradictory statements, which further added to investigators' suspicions that he had been involved in Shashia's disappearance. Investigators also noticed that Johnny had sustained a recent injury to his hand. When asked about how he had obtained this injury, Johnny would not give a solid answer. With Johnny being difficult during his interrogation, and him also matching the physical description of the unknown man seen in the CCTV footage with Shashia before she vanished, police arrested him on suspicion of kidnap. They did not, however, have any physical evidence to prove that a crime had been committed. The warrant to search Johnny's home was the most vital hope of being able to charge Johnny, who was now their only and number one suspect with a crime. Investigators were hoping that they would find DNA evidence or one of Shashia's possessions within the home, but at 10:30 p.m. that night, they'd got more than they bargained for, when a naked body was discovered in a shallow grave in the courtyard of the building where Johnny lived. Forensic examiners were called in, and shortly before midnight, just 2 days after her disappearance, the remains were confirmed to be that of missing Shashia Moreau. Johnny was rearrested, this time with a charge of murder. During questioning, Johnny claimed to have no recollection of that Tuesday at all. Police now had the task of piecing together Johnny's movements that day by themselves. Upon checking the surveillance footage from his local area, it was discovered that at 2:47 p.m. that day, Johnny was in the local town centre speaking with a friend. On this CCTV, Johnny had also been wearing a different sweater to the clothing that he had been pictured in earlier that day at Antwerp Station when picking up Shashia. He was also captured on CCTV inside a supermarket, where he could be seen purchasing a shovel. Johnny then returned home before leaving for work an hour later, just before 4 p.m. He then boarded a tram and headed towards the McDonald's where he worked in Burgt. In this footage, Johnny could be seen holding a rag against his injured hand. Once he arrived to work, he used the first aid kit there to patch up this injury. 2.5 years after Shashia's murder, the trial began on the 18th of October 2019. It was on the first day of this trial that Johnny had broken his silence and suddenly claimed to have remembered exactly what happened the day of the murder. During the trial, the messages Shashia and Johnny had exchanged were relayed to the court. These messages would show that Shashia had in fact been delayed that morning in her train journey. Due to this, she had sent a courteous message to Johnny to apologise and let him know that she was going to be a couple of minutes late. Johnny had then replied in a strange way, telling her that she would be punished in a message that would display sexual undertones. It appeared that Shashia had been taken aback by this message and made it clear to him that she was not interested in anything sexual and was in fact only interested in the Pokemon figurine. Once the pair had met as intended at Antwerp Station, they made their way back to Johnny's house. Johnny had kept all of his Pokemon figurines in a glass cabinet, and whilst Shashia had been browsing his collection, Johnny had made a grab at her, causing Shashia to turn around in shock. Johnny then began to forcefully kiss Shashia. According to Johnny, she then began to kiss him back. He then claimed that the pair had made their way to the bedroom and engaged in sexual intercourse. He had begun to choke Shashia and before he knew it, claimed that she had stopped breathing. Johnny went on to tell the court that he did not intend to harm Shashia and that he immediately wanted to call for an ambulance, but believed that it was already too late to save her. Johnny claimed to have panicked when he came to the realization that nobody would believe that this had been an accident, so made the conscious decision to get rid of the body. After he had murdered Shashia, he began creating his alibi and making it look as though she had never turned up to their meeting, accessing her phone and sending messages to himself to make it appear as though she had cancelled their meeting. Furthermore, Johnny also began to respond to Shashia's friends on her social media accounts to cancel meetings with them too, to buy time and to not make them suspicious. Later that day, he had purchased the shovel and buried Shashia's body. When he realised the hole that he had dug wasn't deep enough, he opted to tie her legs and arms so that she would fit in. Presented at trial was the forensic evidence that was found in Johnny's bedroom. Bloodstains had been found on his mattress, which he had tried in vain to scrub away. A tuft of Shashia's hair had also been found wedged between the mattress and the fitted sheet on his bed. A number of female witnesses also took to the stand during the trial to testify how Johnny had also tried to lure them to his home to look at his Pokemon collection. Another stated that Johnny had offered her €500 to engage in sexual acts. During the trial, Johnny was asked to demonstrate on a doll how he had choked Shashia. Johnny claimed that at no point did she seem distressed and that he had his eyes closed the entire time. Upon witnessing the demonstration on the doll, a member of the jury fell ill and the trial had to be postponed. The medical examiner did confirm that Shashia had succumbed to strangulation, but was unable to confirm whether this had been done by Johnny's hands or with the use of an object. The medical examiner also pointed out bruising to Shashia's legs, which indicated that the intercourse had not been consensual. Johnny's ex-girlfriend also took to the stand to state of how he owned a BDSM collar, which he liked to use during intercourse. However, this collar could not be found during the search carried out by police. Some believe that it was this collar which may have been used to strangle Shashia, and this had been discarded before the search was carried out. Johnny was forced to undergo a psychological evaluation during the trial, and it was found that he had a narcissistic and psychopathic personality disorder. It was determined that he took pleasure in seeing other people suffer. He was quick to shift the blame to others and had an egocentric attitude. Just 1 week after the trial commenced, on October the 25th of 2019, a verdict was reached. The now 28-year-old Johnny van den Broek was sentenced to life in prison, which in Belgium is 15 to 23 years. The jury dismissed his story as completely unbelievable and determined that his ultimate goal was to carry out his sexual fantasy on Shashia before murdering her. Johnny was also sentenced to complete an additional 15 years of judicial surveillance once his imprisonment was completed. Shashia's funeral was later held in her hometown of Heistopdenberg. Her love of Pokemon was a running theme throughout and was highlighted during the ceremony. The ceremony began to the tune of the Pokemon song. Shashia's picture was flanked by 2 animated characters on the screens, and even a Pokemon was on the prayer card. Her loved ones stated, "We still don't understand. You will never get married or have children. Your life had yet to begin." The brutal manner in which she died was not directly addressed, however the police were expressly thanked for their efforts. As a result, we were able to say goodbye in a dignified way today, the family stressed.